Welcome back to This is VANCOLOUR. To quote our featured guest, "We built our world with fire, now heat is destroying our lives." It's a reality that we know all too well in Western Canada, including here in British Columbia, while we watch the catastrophic wildfires in Southern California destroy homes, level neighborhoods, and displace upwards of 200,000 people. But does this recent wildfire disaster provide any new lessons? Joining us is a Canadian journalist and award-winning author of the book Fire Weather: The Making of a Beast, which delves into the 2016 Fort McMurray wildfires and explores our rapidly changing relationship with fire. He is John Vaillant. John, thanks for being here tonight.
Hey there, Mo. So good to be with you.
Where in California are you right now? Are you close to the wildfires?
I'm about 50 miles south down I-5 in Orange County. And it's very disorienting because it's a beautiful day here. And it was beautiful yesterday and the day before that. And I know that 50 miles north, people are going through hell and in a state of great anxiety and not insignificant danger right now even. So it's weird. And but you would not know anything was happening except the sirens out the window. But other than that, yeah, all is calm.
Wow, that's so interesting because obviously here in Vancouver, when there are fires in the interior, we get smoke down here, so it's much different.
It really is different, Mo, and I don't know if it's just the nature of the winds. A lot of the smoke is blown out to sea, I think. I don't know why we're not even getting traces of it here, and I really can't explain that. Got to ask a weatherman. So.
Now, you've talked about unfightable fires or 21st century fires. How are the fires that we've seen in the last quarter century different than what we've seen historically?
Well, the fact that we know their names, the Lytton fire in BC, that was a small hamlet, but no fire department was going to put that out. That whole town burnt in 45 minutes and took 2 people with it. Fort McMurray, of course, is really the stuff of legend now. That burnt in the city for a week. That's almost unheard of by itself. And the fact that it occurred in the subarctic when there were still ice on the lakes is, again, really, really, unusual if unprecedented. And I think what is really different here, Mo, is the fact that we had Paradise, California, which killed 85 people last year. That was 2 years ago. We had Lahaina in Hawaii, which killed 100 people last year. Valparaiso, Chile, which most of us in North America haven't heard of, but that took 200 people's lives just this spring. Texas had the biggest fire in its history this spring, killed a fire chief. So no one would have a list like that even 10 years ago. And so what's happened, we have heated the planet. It is measurably hotter. Look at any thermometer, look at any weather record over the last 50 years. And then you look at fire intensity, and what's significant about that is it tracks with the elevated levels of CO2 in the atmosphere from burning fossil fuels. And all those graphs track together. And we've known the influence of CO2 on the heat retaining characteristics of our lower atmosphere since literally the 1850s. This isn't really rocket science, but it is science, and it is having a measurable impact on our health and safety now.
So is it drier conditions or is it more intense winds? Like how do we describe the climate being different?
Yeah, so the climate does what it does. It can produce a blizzard, it can produce a tornado, it can produce a terrible cold snap, it can produce a drought. It's always done that. What climate change does is make those impacts more intense. That's why we've got the higher temperatures, and it also makes it more erratic. So it's January in California. This is not a normal wildfire time. The Santa Ana winds, which are a seasonal wind that blows through here very strongly, that's all normal. But it was blowing 150 kilometers an hour a couple of nights ago. It's going to be blowing 100K plus tonight. And that is not unheard of, but the fact that it's happening more often on the heels of the hottest summer in Los Angeles history, followed by 8 months of drought. That gets us to where we are now. That's very similar to the conditions that burned Fort McMurray. You had record-breaking temperatures, 33 Celsius in early May in Fort McMurray. There was still ice on the lakes. And you had 2 years of drought preceding, and that prepares the ground for rapid fire expansion. And obviously, when it's hotter and drier, the fire has less work to do to combust. And what fire wants to do is to combust as broadly, energetically, and intensely as it can. And when you have high winds like the Santa Anas, or you have even the lighter winds of Fort McMurray that turned into hurricane force winds from the energy of the fire itself, then you have a firestorm. And that's when you have an unfightable fire.
And so, we've heard this idea a few times now that these wildfires are 0% contained. With all of our satellite technology, is there not a capacity to contain these fires early on?
Sometimes there is. I mean, Fort McMurray fire is a great example. So folks are super diligent. The wildfire service in Alberta is one of the best in the world. They knew it was hot. They knew it was dry. There was fire in the forecast. They had choppers up looking. As soon as that smoke popped up, the one that turned into the Horse River fire, which became the Fort McMurray fire, they had Bambi buckets, helicopters on it, and a hotshot crew on it, I think within half an hour.
Wow.
And it was so hot, Mo, and so dry that it grew explosively, and they could not contain it. And that's the disadvantage that climate change puts us at. So fires that we could have caught 20 years ago are now moving too fast. And I coined a term in the book, which is 21st century fire. And it has certain characteristics. And among them is its speed and heat. And it's much harder to catch. And so you have firefighters in Fort McMurray. They're not naive, innocent guys. And you have experienced firefighters in the LAPD. They're not naive, inexperienced guys, but they're saying, I've never seen a fire like this. Wow. So you have these two different fire services, no stranger to fire, 2,500 kilometers apart, saying, I've never seen anything like this. And that's 21st century fire. There's a whole lot of us who are going to see things we've never seen before. That's what climate change holds in store for us. And that's why you saw 3 feet of rain, a meter of rain following Hurricane Helene in the mountains of North Carolina just a couple of months ago. Yeah. No one had ever seen 3 feet of rain. It washed whole towns away and wiped out, that disaster alone, probably $150 billion, maybe $200 billion. The neighborhoods, the 2 neighborhoods, Altadena and Pacific Palisades in Los Angeles, so far, the bill is probably pushing $50-60 billion US.
Wow.
We cannot afford that.
John, we have about a minute left here. Are there any new lessons from these Southern California fires for British Columbia or Canada? What can we learn from this recent, just catastrophic wildfire?
So I think what we're seeing, Mo, is that these fires can happen anywhere, even in a very fire-savvy, very experienced city like Los Angeles. There have been hundreds of fires in Los Angeles County over the decades. They know how to fight them. I think there's something like 9,000 firefighters on the LAPD, across the numerous fire services. And yet you have firefighters saying, I've never seen anything like this. And so Vancouver's fire department needs to recognize that fire burns differently now, and what they're used to is not what is going to happen. So we need to anticipate the future, and we need to learn from Valparaiso. We need to learn from Los Angeles, from Lytton, from Fort McMurray, from Slave Lake, from Paradise, from Portugal, Spain, it's Greece. People are going through this all over the world now, and we cannot fight fires like it's 1995. We need to move into 2025, and it's going to be a humdinger.
Absolutely. John, thank you so much for your time tonight, and please do stay safe.
Thank you, Mo. So good to be with you tonight.
Folks, that was John Vaillant. If you haven't already, make sure you pick up his book, Fire Weather, The Making of a Beast. Now, after some business, we're going to end on a lighter note. Fiona Forbes will give you tips to turn your Blue Monday into a Blue Fun Day. That's up next.